About 25% of the world has hypertension, or high blood pressure, which basically means that it's pretty common. Let's start with defining it. Typically, it's represented by two numbers. The top number is the systolic blood pressure, which is the arterial pressure when the heart's contracting. And the lower number is the diastolic blood pressure, which is the arterial pressure when the heart's relaxing or refilling. Most of the time, blood pressure is taken in the brachial artery in your upper arm, because if the pressure's high there, it's probably high throughout all the arteries. And in that situation, it's called isolated systolic hypertension or isolated diastolic hypertension. Having high blood pressure is a serious problem for the blood vessels because it causes wear and tear on the endothelial cells that line the inside of the blood vessels. Just like a garden hose that's always under high pressures, in the long term, blood vessels can develop tiny cracks and tears that can lead to serious problems like myocardial infarctions, aneurysms, and strokes. About 90% of the time, though, hypertension happens without a clearly identifiable underlying reason, and we call this primary hypertension or essential hypertension. In other words, over time, pressure in the arteries begins to silently creep up. There are a bunch of risk factors that we've identified for this primary hypertension, and these include old age, obesity, salt-heavy diets, and sedentary lifestyles. With the exception of age, all these can be improved with lifestyle changes, and those changes can help reduce the risk of hypertension. About 10% of the time, there is a specific underlying condition that can be found which is the cause of the hypertension, and we call this secondary hypertension. For example, anything that limits the blood flow to the kidneys or the renal blood flow can cause hypertension, things like atherosclerosis, vasculitis, or aortic dissections. This is because the kidneys play a super important role in blood pressure regulation. When not enough blood is flowing to the kidneys secrete the hormone renin, which ultimately helps the kidneys retain